What's going on YouTube? Today in this video, let's look at how to use the Angular Fire 7 version with the Angular's newest version 15. Without wasting any time, let's get started. Recently, Angular released its newest version, Angular 15. With this update, there are a few changes that happened to how to use Angular 15 with the Angular Fire 7th version. So in this video, let's see how to deal with this, right? So before we begin, if any of you guys are using the older version of Angular CLI, upgrade it to the newest version, Angular 15. So we can do that simply by running the Angular CLI installation command on your command prompt or the terminal. You can find this about in the Angular's official documentation. So just copy this code and paste it inside your command prompt. If you are using Windows, use the command prompt. If you are on a Mac, use the terminal. So before you execute this command, simply add sudo beginning of this command if you are on a Mac. For Windows users, no need to do this. Just simply run this command. npm install -g @angular/CLI. This may take several seconds to update the libraries. Once it completes, you can check the version of this using the ng version command. Alright, let's create a new Angular app. So go to your project folder and generate a new Angular app using this command ng new, and the project name is something angularfire. Hit enter to execute this command. Give is to this, select the CSS as the styling method. That's it. So wait until this installation process complete. While this is installing, let's create a Firebase account. So any of you guys have this already, you guys can use your Firebase account for this. But for this lecture, I'll create a new account and a new Firebase project. So let's go to this firebase.google.com and go to this console and create a new project. Give a project name and agree to these terms. Click continue. From here, disable the Google Analytics, so we don't need that. After this, click on this create project. So this will create a new Firebase project for us. Next, we have to install the Firebase tools CLI on our computer globally. Actually, we don't need this to install, but there is a problem with the Angular Fire newest version. To prevent that, we'll use this Firebase tools CLI. I'll show you the problem when we deal with this Angular Fire package. For now, just simply install this following this guide. So this is also a command line interface or a CLI. So in order to install this, we have to use the command line or the terminal. So inside this, run this command npm install -g firebase-tools. If you're on a Mac, use sudo beginning of this command. Awesome. So guys, next let's log into our Firebase account using this installed Firebase tools, right? So for this, we can use the Firebase command. So guys, we are getting this Firebase command with the installation of Firebase tools CLI. Without installing this, we cannot use this Firebase command. Hope you guys got the idea. So let's log into the Firebase account. So we can do that by using this command Firebase login. So this will automatically take us to the browser and load the Google authentication to log into our Firebase account. Now log into this using your Gmail account that you used to log in to the Firebase account. That's it. Once it's all done, let's open this inside the VS Code. Alright, now let's install the Angular Fire package. So guys, in order to use the firestore with our Angular app, we have to use this Angular Fire package, right? So let's install it. For this, we're gonna use the Angular CLI command. So inside the VS Code integrated terminal, run this command ng and @angular/fire. Hit enter to run this command. So this command will add the angularfire package to our Angular project. Once the installation is done, this will ask what are the Firebase options we want to use with our Angular project. For this, we will use only the firestore database. So select the firestore option. You can move around this using the arrow keys, and you can select an option using the space bar. So first I'll untick the ng deploy option, so we don't need that. Then I select this firestore option. Once you select this, hit enter to execute this command. So next, this will ask us to select our Firebase account. So in here, as you can see, this is loaded our Firebase account, but you guys may wonder how this is showing our Firebase account. If you can remember, we logged into our Firebase account previously using the Firebase tool CLI, right? Actually guys, you can log into this using this angularfire command from here, but I don't know why when I try to log into my Firebase account, I'm getting this error. As a solution for this, I use the Firebase tool CLI method, right? Alright, so select the Firebase account and hit enter. After this, we have to select the Firebase project. So I created this project already, so I will select that. In case if you want to create a new project, you can create that from here as well. After this will ask us to create a new Firebase app. If you have an experience with Firebase, as you know, in order to use the Firebase features with our project, we have to create a new app inside the Firebase console, right? In previous, we have to do this manually, but with the new AngularFire version, we can create this automatically with this command. So in case if we already created the Firebase app, it will show here. But in our case, we created a brand new Angular project. So we don't have created the Firebase app yet. So let's create the new app using the angularfire command. So this will create a new Firebase app inside our Firebase console. Once it has done, this will start to configure our Angular project to use the firestore database automatically. But there is a problem. As you can see here, we are getting this error saying that in our Angular project, there is no environment file to add the Firebase configuration. So this execution is not completed. It's failed. So guys, in Angular 15, the Angular team removed the environment files from the Angular boilerplate to minimize the application size. So because of this, we cannot complete the angularfire installation. So in order to fix this, we have to create these environment files manually. So let's do this. So inside the SRC folder, create a folder and the folder name is environments. Inside this, create two files. One is environment.ts and the second file is environment.prod.ts. I assume that you guys already have knowledge of Angular framework, so that's why I'm going these steps a little faster. If any of you guys don't know about Angular, you guys can check my Angular full course. I'll leave the link in the description. Alright, so we have created the environment files. Now let's again run the angularfire command. Select the firestore from here and select your Firebase account. Now as you can see here, this time the configuration process is going forward without any issues. So once this completed, as you can see here, this did some modifications on these files. So if I go to the environment file, as you can see here, we can see these Firebase app configurations, keys and details. In previous, we have to do this manually, but with this new update, this will automatically import these configurations details from the Firebase. Inside the app model TS file, also we can see these imports. So all the configurations are completed automatically. So we don't need to worry to do anything. Now we can simply use the firestore database with our Angular project. So guys, this is the new way to configure and connect the Angular app to a Firebase project. Very easy to comparing to the previous version, but there are some problems like the environment files. So otherwise, this is awesome. Alright, let's move on to the next. Let's write the firestore queries. This is also totally changed from the previous methods. So we'll learn this one by one. So we'll start with the save or the create query. So first thing first, let's create a simple form to register a user. As I will not focus on the CSS stylings in this video, so I will just work on the queries. So let's create a simple form. Go to the app component HTML file. Inside this, remove all the default boilerplate codes and add these markups. First, let's create a form tag. Inside this, create 3 inputs. First input, the type is text and the input name is, this is for the user's name. So this input name is name. Next, for the email, so the input type is email and the name is email. Next, for the something password, the input type is password and the name is password. After this, add a submit button and that's it. Now we have to capture these input values inside the component TS file, right? For this we can use the 2 techniques in Angular, the reactive form method and the template driven forms method. I hope you guys already know this, right? So for this lecture, let's use the template driven method. So how do we make this form as template driven? Very simple. So first we have to create a template variable, something if we create a template variable with the hash sign. So after this, assign this to the ng form directive. Inside codes, ng form. As you can see here, we are getting a compile error. In order to solve this compile error, we have to import the forms module inside the app modules file, right? So let's do that. Go to the app modules file and import the forms module. That's it. So guys, now inside this, add the ng module directive to all these inputs. So now we have successfully made this form as a template driven form. That's it. Now let's add a submit method. The event binding is for this ng submit. So put this inside this form tag. After this, assign. When submitting this form, let's call a method. The method name is something add data and parentheses. In order to send this form's value to this method, pass this template variable to this method as a parameter value. Again, we are getting a compile error because this add data method is not created yet. So now let's create this method inside the app component TS file. Inside this app component file, let's create the add data method. Create a parameter variable to capture the form's value, something f. For now, let's log this parameter variable and check whether this is working or not. So inside this method, console.log and f.value. The form's values are inside this value object, right? So save this all and run this app. So inside the integrated terminal, run ng-serve. So go to the browser. As you can see here, we got our form. This is just a simple HTML form. I'll zoom in to see this clearly. Let's fill this form and hit the submit button. So inside the browser console, we got this forms data. So this is working as we expected. Alright, let's do the query. For this, first thing first, we have to import a few modules from angularfire inside this component.ts file. So add these imports. Import inside curly brackets. First, let's import the firestore module. So firestore, F is capital. After this, from the path of this module is at angular/fire/firestore. Put this inside of quotes. In order to use this firestore model, we have to inject this to the constructor. So let's do that. Create a constructor method, and inside this parentheses, inject the firestore. So private firestore, this is a variable name, and the module name is firestore with capital F. That's it. Next, we need another two modules. This also coming from the same path, so we can add them inside the same import. So the first method is collection. The C is simple. So next, add doc, and this D is capital. So carefully follow these capital simple letters, otherwise you guys will end up with errors. So now let's do the save firestore query. Inside this add data method, let's write the query. First thing first, we have to define the firestore collection. So we can do this using the collection method, which is imported from the angularfire module. So collection and parentheses. Inside this is required two parameters. As the first parameter, we have to pass the firestore module, which is this injected firestore module. So pass that here, this dot firestore. As the second parameter, pass the collection name. So we're going to save this user data inside of the user firestore collections. So the collection name is users. Pass this as a string. After this, let's assign this to a variable, then we can use this later on, right? So const, the variable name is something, collection instance, and assign to this collection. Alright, next write the add query. For this we can use this add doc method. We already imported this as well. So after this, add doc and parentheses, this required the collection instance, which is this. We already defined this. So let's pass that here as the first parameter, collection instance. As the second parameter, pass the data object that we want to save inside this document. We are getting the data from this parameter variable, so pass that here, f.value. That's it. So guys, this is the add data query for the firestore database. Next, we have to handle the success and error state. So this will return a promise. So let's handle that. After this, dot, then parentheses. Inside this arrow function, this is the success state. So let's add the success log message, something data save successfully. After this, let's add the error state. We can catch the error using the catch method. So after this, dot catch and parentheses. Inside this arrow function, in order to capture the errors, we have to create a parameter variable. So the variable name is something ERR or error. Inside this, let's log this error. So we can fix the error by looking at this log. Awesome. That's it for this create or save query. Let's see this in action. So save this all and go to the browser. Fill this form. Name something John. Email john@john.com. Password is something 123456. Hit enter or click this button to save this data inside the firestore database. As you can see here inside our browser console, we got this success message, which means we are saved our data inside the firestore database successfully. Let's double confirm this. Go to the Firebase console and go to the Firebase tab. In here now we can see this users collection. Inside that we can see this document ID, expand it. Inside this we can see our users data, name, email and the password. Looks perfect, right? Let's save another data and we can see this clearly. So as you can see here, this time also we got the success message, and inside our firestore database we can see our second document, which means guys everything working as we expected. So guys, this is how we deal with the create query in the newest version of Angular 5.7 and with the Angular 15. Alright, let's move on to the read query. For this, let's create a new method. The method name is something get data and the parentheses. For this, we don't need any parameters. So inside this, let's write the query. For this also, we have to define the collection instance. So we already did this. So let's copy and paste that here. Alright, next, in order to get the data from firestore, we have to use another method from angularfire module, so which is collection data. Let's import that first. This also comes from the same path, so import this inside this same import. Inside this, after this comma, and the method name is collection data. This D is capital. Once again, carefully follow these capital simple letters. Alright, now inside this get data method, write the query. After this, get data method name is collection data and the parentheses. This is required this collection instance. So pass that inside this parentheses. And that's it. This is very simple, right? Next, this will return the data as an observable. In order to access the data from an observable, we have to subscribe to that observable, right? Any of you guys don't know about observables, you can learn this in detail in my full Angular course. Link is in the description. Alright, let's do the subscription. After this, dot subscribe and parentheses. Inside this, create another function. We receive the data as a parameter for this subscribe method, so capture it using the parameter variable. So parameter variable is val. After this arrow function, inside this, let's log this val variable. Now we have the get data method and the query, but in order to run this method, we have to call this method, right? So let's call this method from the constructor. So this dot get data and parentheses. Perfect. Save this all and go to the browser. As you can see here, inside our browser console, we got this array object. Inside that, we got this data, which is loaded from our firestore database. Name, email and the password. So guys, this is how we read the data from firestore database using this new angularfire module. Very simple compared to the previous angularfire version's query. Alright, before we move on to the next query, let's load this data inside of the view. For this, let's create a global variable, something user data, and this type will be observable. Select this auto import. This will import the observable instance from RxJS. Next, set this observable type to any. Now inside this get data method, assign this to this observable. Without this subscription, we don't need that. Wait, I'll keep this for later references, and let's write this code again and assign it to this user data variable. So this dot user data, assign collection data, inside the parentheses, collection instance. That's it. So guys, now we have the data. Let's load this inside the view. So go to the component.html file. After this, create a UL tag, and inside this, create a li tag. Inside this tag, let's add the ng4. So asterisk ng4 and assign. The condition is let data of user data. So as you guys know, this is observable. In order to loop the observable inside the view, we can use the async pipe, right? So add the async pipe here. Now inside this li tag, let's show the user details. So for this, we can use the string interpolation. Open and close double curly brackets. Inside this, data dot name. After this, let's separate the second data with the slash. So after this slash, and this second data is email. Again another string interpolation, data dot email. At last, I think no need to load the password, right? So save this and go to the browser. As you can see here, now we can see the saved user details inside this view, right? Let's save a new user. As you can see here, after this saved, the new data inside the firestore database, this list refreshed and show the new user data I saved a moment before. Guys, as you know, firestore is a real-time database. So the real-time feature is working without any issue after I save a new data, right? Let's again save another user. As you can see, a newly saved user loaded real-time, right? With this just one line of code, we loaded the data, firestore data without any issues and with the real-time feature. No need to use this snapshot changes or value changes method like the previous version of Angular Fire. Alright guys, let's move on to the update query. For this also, let's create a method, something called update data and parentheses. Now inside this, let's write the query. This is not like the previous add data and get data methods. In here, we use the collection instance to perform these queries, right? Now we are going to deal with the update query. So we update the data inside of a document, not the collection, right? So first we have to filter out and select the document that we want to update. So in order to do this, we cannot use this collection method. For this, we have to use another method in Angular Fire called doc, right? So let's do this. So first let's import this. This is also coming from the same path. So add the import inside this doc, D-O-C, all simple letters. Now inside the update data method, let's create the doc instance. Create a variable, something const doc instance, assign. This time we're going to use the doc method. So doc and parentheses. Now inside this, pass the firestore module, this dot firestore. After this, pass the collection name as the second parameter, users, pass this as a string. After this, in order to filter out the document from the collection, we have to use the document ID, right? So as the third parameter, we have to pass the ID of the updating document. So we will get the ID to this update data method as a parameter. So create a parameter variable ID and this type will be something string. Now pass this parameter ID variable as the third parameter for this firestore doc method. That's it. With this, we are defining the path of the document that we want to edit. Okay. Next, I will do this by updating the data manually. So create an object to update the name of the user. So the object name is something update data. Inside the object, let's change the name to something updated name. Now we have the data to update and we have the document instance or the path of the target document. Therefore, now we can write the update query. For this, we have to use another method called update doc. So first we have to import this. So this is also same as previous, coming from the same path. So import this inside this. The method name is update doc. This D is capital. Now inside the update method, after this add this update doc and parentheses. As the first parameter, pass the doc instance. As the second parameter, pass the edited data object, which is this update data object. In a real world application, we do this with the form. So but for this lecture, I just created this edited object manually. Hope you guys got the idea, right? So pass this as the second parameter for this update doc Angular Fire method. After this, we have to handle the success and error status. this is also returning a promise. So after this dot then parentheses, inside this callback function, inside this callback create arrow function and log the success message. After this error state, so for this we can use the catch method, inside parentheses arrow function and the parameter variable something error, arrow function, inside this log the error message. If this update query worked, we will get the success message. If this is failed, we will get this error message. That's it for this update data method. Guys, now we have the method, but in order to trigger this method, we have to call this method. So for this, we'll add an update button inside this user list. So create a button tag inside this HTML page, and the button text is edit. Now I want to call this update data method from this button. As you know, for this we can use the click event binding, but we have a problem. This update data method required a parameter document ID. So how do we get that? If you can remember, when we get the data from firestore, inside this data object we don't have the document ID. So we have to retrieve that with this data object. If you can remember, in the previous version of AngularFire, for this we used this snapshot changes method to get the document ID. But now we can easily get the ID something like this. So inside the TS file and go to this getData method, just pass this as the second parameter for this getData query. This is an object, so open and close curly brackets. Inside this, the key value pair is ID field and the value is ID. So guys, with this we are saying this collection data method to get the data from this user's collection with the ID field and name that ID field key as ID. So I'll add this to this log as well, so we can see this clearly. Save this all and back to the browser. As you can see here, this time we got the ID inside this document object. This key name is ID. So guys, this is what we did here. So once again guys, we are telling to this method to retrieve the data from this firestore collection and include the ID to this data object. Very simple, right? We don't need to write lines of codes. With just this parameter, we retrieve the document ID. Compare the previous snapshot changes method. This is quite easy, right? Alright, now we have the ID. So now we can pass the document ID to this update data method with this button. So at the click event, the method name is update data parentheses, pass the document ID to this data.id, for this key is ID, right? Alright, the update code is completed. Now let's see this in action. Save this all and go to the browser, click on this edit. As you can see here, this name is changed to update name. Inside the console, we got the success message as well. So guys, which means the update query is working without any problem. Once again, I'll click on this second button. As you can see here, this is also updated to this update name, which is coming from this object, right? So we did this manually. In real world application, you can use a separate form for this. Alright, so guys, this is how we deal with the update query. Alright guys, let's move on to the final query, delete. For this also, let's create a method, something called delete data. This is also required the document ID, so create a parameter variable. For this delete query also, we need the document instance, not the collection instance, like this update data. So copy that and paste it here. The collection name is users, and this required the document ID. Next, in order to perform the delete query, we have the delete doc method in AngularFire. So in order to use this method, so same as the previous methods, we have to import that to this component file. So first, inside this import, add this import delete doc. Carefully follow these capital simple letters. This D is capital. Next, inside this delete method, after this, delete doc and parentheses. This required the document instance, so pass that as the parameter for this method. That's it. Very simple, right? Next, let's handle the success and error state. This also return a promise. So dot then and parentheses, inside this callback, arrow function, inside this add the console log. The message is data deleted. That's it for the delete query. Now let's add the delete button. Go to the HTML file. After this, add another button, and the button text is delete. In order to perform the delete operation, we have to call the delete data method when clicking this button. So for this, we can use the click event binding. So the event is click, and the method name is delete data and parentheses. This required the document ID parameter, so pass that here, data.id. That's it. So now save this all and go to the browser. Click on this delete button. As you can see here, the user data is removed from this list. And if you look at the console, we got this data deleted message, which means the data delete query is working we expected. Awesome, right? Alright guys, this is it for this course. Overall, the Angular Fire 7 update is a great update as it allows for easy writing of queries. However, when installing and configuring it with the latest version of Angular, there is some issues to contend with. I believe that in future updates, Angular Fire will address these problems. In the past, I have used previous version of the Angular Fire for stable and bug-free performance. However, this update is very good. So guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the comment section. If you liked the video, give a thumbs up, and this will help this video to rank on YouTube search. Alright guys, we'll wrap it up. We'll meet you with another awesome video like this. Until then, learn smart, not hard.